Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday morning to you. Welcome back to Morning Musings. Now, look, I've got to start off with an apology. Uh, I introduced a brand new book by Dan Derry in a video this last week. I had already ordered in a very good supply of the books immediately after they were published. It had not dawned on me that I had started selling those because I sent emails to some people and what have you. It For some reason it didn't register on me that I had already sold a good number of them. All right. So when I introduced the book, there was literally a flood of orders. Now, that's wonderful, but I realized as soon as I started checking inventory, I didn't have near enough books to fill all the orders. So once again, I was caught flat-footed, and that just normally does not happen. Before I introduce books, I make sure I've got a goodly number of inventory sitting on the shelf. But the response to this book literally took me by surprise. And again, I had already ordered a goodly number of them, but I just wasn't keeping mental track of the fact of how many of the initial order that I had already sold. So here I am, apologizing to those of you who have ordered a copy of The Meaning Behind the Manner by Dan Derry, a study of Acts chapter 1. I have a lot of books ordered to fill the orders that are still coming in, and thank you so very, very much. But it will be, they tell me that February 18th is when I should get my next order. I'll have plenty on hand when they arrive. And for those of you who have placed your order, who do not receive your order in the next couple of days, when we receive our inventory, we'll throw a little bit extra in there for you as our way of apologizing for the inconvenience. Again, I'm really sorry about this. I hope that this doesn't happen again. But one more time, the orders just started flooding in for this book. It's wonderful. It's fantastic. It shows that you're interested in this subject. And by the way, when you get the book, it's going to be worth the wait. This is a really, really good book. And so it's a book that's going to help you in your understanding of Acts chapter 1, the priestly work of Christ, the nature of, language, the nature of covenantal language. On and on it goes. So please be patient with me. Please forgive me for my oversight. We'll try to make it up to you. All right? With that said, we go back to Matthew chapter 24 in our study of the Olivet Discourse. We've been looking at the language of Matthew 24:29 and following. We focused for a good long time on the Great Tribulation, demonstrating that the language of the coming of the Lord in Matthew 24:29, about the sun being darkened, the moon not giving its light, the stars of heaven falling from the sky. And then in the last video, we focused on the fact that Jesus said, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. Now, there are two different Greek words that are translated as power. There's dunamis and there's exousia. In Matthew chapter 24, it is dunamis. There, in some contexts, there is a distinction. Power is just raw power, dunamis, and exousia is the authority to use that power. I don't think there's a massive distinction to be found in this particular text. But here's what I shared with you in the previous video on Matthew 24. And that is that this reference to the powers of the heaven will be shaken has to do with the fact that in the ancient world, there was the belief that the gods, both positive and negative, dwelt in the unseen realm. They dwelt in the air. Ephesians chapter 2, 1 and following, shows to us that in the ancient world, and Paul ascribed to that the God of this world, the spiritual forces, the spiritual wickedness in high places, was in what he called the air. Greek word air. And he didn't mean by that what I'm breathing into my nostrils and into my mouth. It was the spiritual realm, the unseen realm of spiritual forces. It is that realm, the spiritual forces, the unseen spiritual forces, that Colossians chapter 2 tells us Christ triumphed over the principalities and the powers, the spiritual forces, and he did it through the cross. It is to those spiritual unseen forces that Paul depicts Christ coming in the air, the air, which is simply the language of triumph and victory, that Christ's second coming was to be in the spiritual realm. Now think about this very quickly with me. Ephesians chapter 4 says that when Christ ascended up on high, he led captivity captive and gave gifts to men. Now let me ask you a question. When Christ ascended, and many commentators down through the years believe that is a reference that he took the souls of the righteous out of Hades, and they ascended with him. Who saw that? They saw Christ ascending in a physical body. They did not see the dead, the righteous dead, being taken out of the Hadean realm. But it is in that realm, the air, in which Christ would return, that unseen realm. That's why he would come in the glory of the Father. This is verified in Matthew chapter 24 and verse 30, in which Jesus said, "Then the sign of the Son of Man in heaven shall appear." Or the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, New King James. Now many people take that to be a reference and to be saying, hey, when the Lord comes, there's going to be something visible in the sky. You know, some people applied that to Constantine in the 4th century. He supposedly saw the sign of the cross in the heavens, in the sky. Sounded to me like he had an eye problem, but anyway. The point being that the force of the Greek in Matthew 24:30 does not say they would see something visible in the sky. What it is saying is that in the physical events that they would see, that would signify, that would indicate, that would prove that Christ was enthroned in the heavens as King of Kings, Lord of Lords. He was now acting in judgment as the Father had acted many times before. He was coming in the glory of the Father, but he wasn't coming literally, visibly. Just like the Father had never come literally and visibly, but had come many times out of heaven on the clouds. The physical events, the physically visible events of the fall of Jerusalem, the abomination of desolation, the great tribulation, the destruction of Jerusalem, were the visible signs of the spiritual unseen realities of the enthronement of Christ as King of Kings and Lord of Lords, coming in judgment, acting in judgment as the Father had acted many times before. So the language here of the powers of the heaven being shaken and the sign of the Son of Man points us to the reality that this coming of the Son of Man was not to be an optically visible reality. No, there were to be physical events that would point to that unseen reality. After all, the disciples asked, "What shall be the sign of your presence?" The destruction of Jerusalem was the sign of the presence of the Lord, the Parousia of the Lord. Proof positive that Jesus is King of Kings and Lord of Lords. This is powerful, powerful stuff. And hey, you know what? We've got more. I will see you on the flip side.